Hi, David Vizard here, and you are watching PowerTech 10. Give me a few moments of your time, and hopefully I'll be able to deliver to you the benefits of over 60 years of building race-winning engines. All I need is about 20 minutes, so with that said, let's go. This a rebooted episode from my original channel, David Vizard Performance, is episode 12 of the new channel, David Vizard. What I want to do here is let you know exactly where I'm going here. During my many decades of being a person who earned probably half their income from articles, I had to be always very diplomatically correct and not upset the people that were my clients, that is the editors. Or in fact anyone that I may need to work with. So I had to be very reserved. Now I've retired. I don't rely on magazines anymore. I'm doing this channel. So what you're going to find is you're going to see the real me, and that is, don't tick me off with BS, because I don't accept it very well, nor do I tolerate electronic bullying or any bullying. So you're going to see a video here where the newer, bolder DV will come into play. So let's carry on with this video. Now, the subject here is BS bashing. Right now, normally I wouldn't take on an individual, but if that individual has enough influence to spread wrong information and have it accepted because he is seen as a responsible and, how shall I say, talented professional, appears to be so, then at some point in time I have to step in to look after you guys, right? So that's what I'm doing. So this guy is very, how shall I say, well, the easiest thing to say is I don't think he socially has it all together, but my point is this, right? This video is going to take more than just this one shoot here. So I'm sure it's going to run 3, 4, maybe even more series, because this guy has some very interesting responses, but he's going to run out of those because they're not relevant. But anyway, let's get on with this video. Right. We are going to take a popular belief, especially amongst cam grinders, that the profile dynamics are more important than the valve events that the cam generates. My contention is it isn't. It's the other way around. But anyway, let's get on with this video. This is a few things I've got to get off my back here. I'm almost 80 years old, and I would like my legacy to show something that is actually who I am, instead of what so many people think I should be. Now, the two things that I want to emphasize here are, one, why I get so bent out of shape when people assume that I'm a journalist pretending to be an engineer. It's the reverse that counts, but you'll see some of the things I have to go through, right? And the second thing is, this channel is intended not only to show what you should be doing, but we're here, and I say this in almost every issue, we're here to tell you what's good and promote it, but also tell you what's bad, and that includes BS. So these two episodes will have those two factors. Now, let me tell you how all this started. The first significant thing that I can think of here that's of any consequence, that is blatantly, how shall I say, a journalistic put down. And I'm not saying journalists are bad people or anything. I'm saying that most of them are great writers and poor engineers. Me, I'm a good engineer, but I'm not a very good journalist. Just talk to some of the people who've edited my stuff, and they'll tell you that the content and the facts are what sells the article to them. It certainly isn't the writing. I've had numerous people say how well written my books are. Credit the editors, right? They are the ones that smooth them out. And I've had some great editors and I've had some terrible editors, right? But let me start off with one thing here. Many years ago, back in the early 70s, I was running a 1300 race Mini. And being hard up for money, I couldn't afford any of these super engine conversions, which put a Ford engine, a Ford twin cam engine or a Cosworth BDA engine into a Mini. So I had to run the old 5-port engine and think of other ways to get performance. So a very good friend of mine, Don Laughlin from Alden Automotive, helped out with the design and manufacture of a beam axle for the back of my Mini. Now, it was 75% Don's deal here, and for me it was only the details of where it was going to fit and things like this. Anyway, I got to Prescott Hill Climb for the well, let me tell you first, and I detailed this way back in another episode where I said I set a track record at Silverstone which is very unlikely to ever be beaten. I can't remember what episode it was, but it explains that the record wasn't quite what you think, right? Anyway, during that outing, the suspension played up, but we finally got it sorted out, and mainly it was relocating the rear roll center, and the car went from an abysmal handling car to an incredibly good one. That's how important roll centers can be. Now, I turned up at Prescott, which when I lived in England was my local racetrack. I lived so close to it that I could go home for lunch and come back, right? I think probably I was about 4 or 5 miles from the track. So anyway, I'm parked in the paddock, and the boot, the trunk lid, is open, and I get a whole bunch of local people I know, looking at my rear suspension and kind of ogling and say, hey, that looks pretty trick. Anyway, this guy who was the record holder for the 1300cc class at Prescott bullied his way through the 4 or 5 deep crowd, took a look at the suspension and said, and I quote, "That will never fucking work," loud enough for everybody to hear, and then walked off. Anyway, in the event, we had some rain, right, and the track was kind of a little wet. Well, the nominal time for a Mini to go up that hill in the dry is about 58 seconds or so. A good one, a record-setting one. Well, we couldn't hit the record-setting speeds because the track was not running water, but it was wet, but not wet enough to throw up any spray. Anyway, I beat him by 7 seconds, and the announcer announced what a spectacular run it was going up the hill. And when I got back to the pits, all my friends and local people came over to congratulate me. And this guy literally crashed his way through the crowd, took one look at the car, and he says, "I don't understand this. After all, you're only a f***ing journalist." That's what I have to put up with, right? And I've even been reprimanded. I mean, the late John Diana said to me once, "How dare you tell a professional engine builder how things should be done? After all, you're a journalist, not an engine builder." Well, wrong. I'm an engine builder who writes. And you know why I'm so popular with the writing? Is because I'm not a journalist. I'm an engine builder. The editor of Super Chevy published one of my articles, and I asked him after, I said, why is it you've changed I for we? And he says, well, that's normal practice, right? And I said, look, I went and got the engine from the wrecking yard, pulled it out the car, took it down to the car wash, blew all the worst of the dirt off it, took it to the shop, stripped it all down, washed all the parts. I then bored the block, decked it, line bored it on my, this is all on my friend's machines, then put new guides in the heads, ported the heads, took all the data, took all the photographs, did all the dyno testing on my dyno, right, all the work on either loaned to me machines or my machines. Then I wrote the article, captioned all the pictures, did all the drawings, and then mailed it off to you. Now, where is the we in that? And he says, well, we just do that. And I said, Smokey has I. And he says, well, that's Smokey, right? Well, Smokey and I are about the same in terms of being qualified journalists. We aren't, right? But it was one rule for Smokey and one rule for me. And you know, the best compliment I ever had was from Smokey. He once said to me, he said, you know, you're just like me, but with a university degree. And I remember that. That was probably one of the most moment-warming moments of my life. Right? Thank you, Smokey. Thank you, Smokey. Now then, let's go on a bit here. Right? So, most people know me from my writing. And if ever I contradict them, they get pissed off. Because what's this journalist guy doing correcting us after all? And I had this quoted to, I'm going to quote it, what one engine builder company boss told me. After I contradicted him, I said, no, it doesn't work like that at all. You're completely wrong. That's all BS. Right? And he looked at me and he said, you're not supposed to be here to make yourself look good. You're supposed to be here to make us look good. And I said, you got it wrong. I'm supposed to be here to tell the facts. Right? Yeah, Dragnet. The facts and nothing but the facts. Now, that's what I have to battle, right? And that's, those incidences are not the only ones. There was one at Silverstone which highlights the deal. One of the staff at Silverstone was watching as I had my team, Cheltenham Autosports team, having a feature done on them by lots of different writers road testing the cars. And this guy came up to me and he says, he's watching all these writers go around the track, and he says, I don't know how you can let these idiots drive your cars. He says, none of them really knows what they're doing. And I said, hey, you're forgetting I write. And he says, yeah, but you're the odd man out. He said, you're on our side, not their side. And I thought, wow, is that how the main people see the media? And unfortunately, that's not far off. Now, there are some writers out there who are excellent at their job, right? And they know who they are, but there's a lot out there that are absolutely useless when it comes to technical stuff, right? They repeat what they're told, and you are expected to absorb it hook, line, and sinker like it's nothing to do with them, whether it's right or not. Now, if you find a mistake in my stuff, do you know whose fault it is? Mine. All mine. No one else. I don't pass the buck to anybody else. Now, another thing that I've had happen to me is people say, well, is Vizard, he's just quoting what other people tell him, right? You know, he's always a little late on his developments to be, how shall I say, current? Well, let me give you a few instances there. First, I am the only tech writer on the face of the planet who's managed to write not one, but 2 books, which if on the day of publication you followed through and built your engine as per that book, then all other things being equal, I could guarantee you would go out and whitewash any professional engine builder, and I'm talking about the top ones, not the near top ones, I'm the absolute top ones, and beat them, right? No one else has done that. No one else has produced a book which is in front of the industry, right? Now then, I want to know, by those people who are saying, well, he's just copied somebody else, how can I copy something that doesn't exist until I write about it? Can't do it, right? Let me give you some examples here of things that I've done that have been in front. First, you don't get to take out as many patents as I do by copying, because that would invalidate the patent, right? I've got my name on about 40 patents, but that's not all the ones I do. I come up with patents, patentable ideas so quick that it's easier for me to just give them away to somebody and write about them as if it was their deal, right? I would say that over the last 60 years, I've probably had over 100 patentable ideas, right? I've made quite a bit of money at it, right? A quick rundown is probably around about $1 million in patents, but I spend it all on test equipment, so I don't have lots of money. But the fact I spend it on equipment to better my deal of giving you functional information is why I'm not behind the rest of the industry. For instance, let's take my ground effect car, Ford Anglia. That was built 6 years before the first tunnel car was seen at Indy. Does that sound like somebody who's copying other people's ideas? No, right? So, I say once again, that if you think I'm a journalist, you are so far off, right? You know, I can barely spell, let alone pass an English exam. Now, why can I barely spell? Because I try to do it all in a logical manner. That's phonetically, right? My number 2 protege, who is a very well-known and very successful race engine builder in England, once said to me, he said, yes, the folks in the village remember you well. The only guy who can spell door 3 different ways. That's a little bit of an exaggeration, but not that much. Anyway, on to the next part of what I want to talk about. Okay, so much for this prolonged preamble. Now get to the point. What I'm going to do, and this will be in episode 2, is I am going to uncover the blatant BS that has been put out by a guy who should know better. He's a highly qualified engineer, he runs his own company, and he thinks he's never wrong, obviously. The last words I had with him when I tried to discuss it with him was, get a life. I've got a life. What is this BS? Well, there's several parts of it that are BS, but the one that should concern you, and I'm making it known to you, is the fact that we had a debate on Speed Talk about which was the most important, cam profile dynamics or valve events. In other words, could you have a bad cam with a bad cam profile, but with the events were right, or a super trick cam profile, but the events were wrong? Which one would make the most power? And I put over a story about how this situation cropped up with Sig Urson, late of Urson Cams, and Harvey Crane, late of Crane Cams. And he contradicted it. I'm now going to prove that he's wrong. Big time. And I want to do this because I had an email from a guy saying John was right and there's a lot of professional cam grinders out there that will agree with him. Well, unfortunately, those cam grinders, I'm going to show you up as well, right? This means that you still have something to learn, so maybe you should be watching my channel. Right, so, okay. The guy's name that I'm going to demote to second-class citizen is John Schmidt. Schmidt Auto Works down in California. I think he's in the 714 area code anyway. So until I get to that, which will be shortly because I am raring to go on this, right? Check to see when that comes out. And it won't be very long because I am really fired up on this. Now, thank you all for watching. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and share. Please share. I'll see you in episode 2.